So you got to start the show, right?
Something. Somehow it has to begin, and it's going to begin. My name's Matt Denholm with Serra Acura. I've been in the business with Acura.
Well, shouldn't we tell them what this is?
Yeah. Well, okay, fair enough. This podcast is basically dedicated to informing our consumer. In general, our goal is to inform consumers about what kind of insider information that not everyone gets to hear, stuff that information we feel like should be relayed to people, and questions that we answer all the time. You know, the stuff that we get calls or people walking in, and we thought maybe it'd be best to like try to get that out to everyone. That's in general what this podcast is all about.
Yeah, well said, Matt. I think that's really you nailed it. It's we call it All Thins Acura because we're two guys at an Acura dealership with, quite a few years of experience with the Acura brand. This passion to get the information out comes from, just all the other sources we see out there trying to provide information on Acura. And they're not doing the best of jobs, not only for as you folks as consumers and the general public, but they're also not here. To be fair.
Yep, as I would put it.
As Matt would put it, we're kind of where the rubber meets the road. So we thought it would do justice to communicate with just people on a regular basis, getting the information out there in all things Acura world, what we know. I come with 18 years here with Acura brand on this side of it. So we can share a lot of, what we learned over the 18 years. And at the level that we have access of information to, at least from a dealer standpoint, we can really get some good stuff out to you that's just not going to be well known within the media and, the car gurus out there that just aren't inside the industry.
Yeah, and that's like, that kind of, I think over the pandemic, over these past couple of years, that's something that, you read a lot of articles and we realize, hey, there's a lot of information out there, but not all of it is like good or concise information or information that's coming from someone who actually works at a dealer. And then you realize that the information that you're getting is kind of not really correct. And it's kind of can be skewed. So that's just, that was our passion to make sure people had what we felt was information that was actually from a dealership.
And I think the one thing that everybody's fearful of is these big bad car guys, which I get it. It's like going to the dentist. I mean, who wants to go buy a car from a dealership? I understand that. But really what we want to convey as an overwhelming theme to what we do is we're not looking for you to buy a car from us. Matter of fact, we just want you to have the information.
Yeah.
And you having the information makes our jobs much easier. It's not about wanting to sell you a car. Go to your local dealer, find the best dealer in your area. We'll talk about that on the show on different episodes on helping find that dealer, and you'll get the vibe of who's the right place to do business with and who's not. And just like Matt, just an awesome salesperson himself, and he's won numerous awards and just outstanding in his own right. But we don't expect that you're going to reach out to Matt to buy a car, right? It's more about just getting the information out.
Yeah, and we have that information to provide. So we're sitting here, we always discuss this information or stuff that we have that we come across, and it's like, man, I wish there was a way to like kind of get it out to more people because we have it, and why not be able to share it? Because it kind of helps the industry in general. And that's still like a pain point with a lot of people is that it's that this transparency that I think a lot of dealerships try to say they have or say they're transparent, but there's still that gap between the consumers and the dealerships, and that transparency line just doesn't exist. So this is the goal of this is to help that a little bit, help people like understand a little bit about what we do to help ease those pain points that they have at dealerships. And there's a lot of this stuff we're going to talk about. So
and Matt and I are really good at going down certain rabbit holes. So we'll stop this rabbit hole. Hopefully you got a gist of what we're all about. And today, what we really want to touch on is the hot topic and what's going on. Unless you're living under a rock or in a bubble, it's really all about where in the world are these cars at? What is going on? How's come when I look out there, drive through a car dealership, drive past a dealership, there's no inventory, there's no cars. So we're going to speak of that as far as Acura is concerned and kind of give you the little bit of the state of the union, where things are at. We'll touch a little bit on where things are at and what's coming, and then just walk through some steps on as a consumer, what's the best way of maybe getting yourself in line for one or finding one. And then we'll kind of recap the show with some different incentive information and some different things that we know that, you'd probably just have to go digging, and it'd be kind of hard to find that type of information as it regards to Acura.
Right, exactly. And that's like, it's funny that this pandemic has obviously changed a lot of this and how people buy, and obviously with the inventory out there, and we still, to this day, 2 years later, we're still like answering some of those same questions that, so that's obviously the goal of this episode, is to kind of, like Justin said, give people a state of the union as to what the expectation is out there. And we realize as an Acura dealership, we are a small microcosm of what the whole is. But in general, we could still look at what we do here, what we have here, as kind of like a big picture of things too. So,
absolutely. So, where are the cars at, Matt? What happened to them?
They're hiding them.
We're hiding them. And you guys might be listening to this, and we realize that we're speaking to a lot of different audiences. Some people that are just interested in Acura, some people that might have been searching for something, some people that might have one on order, and you're just trying to get information.
That's true.
On where your car's at. Your dealer's telling you all kinds of crazy stuff, and I'll tell you that the manufacturer is reluctant to share a lot of information. We're in the dark on a lot of things, but we can just tell you kind of what we know and the trends and different things. This all started, again, and as I go back, try not to go down too many different rabbit holes. This all started with the chips in COVID. As you know, a lot of people were working from home. A lot of plants were shut down. Mm-hmm. Well, that created a huge demand on the semiconductor or chip industry for not only, electronics and other needs. The automobile manufacturers pulled back on their needs, which created this huge wave of a problem coming. And the good news for a long time is we had a lot of inventory.
Yeah, we had bought a lot of inventory prior, and we had stuff really up until the last, this is, this is 2022, February 2022. But even up until last summer, we were just talking about that. It's like we had quite a bit of inventory up until then, and it felt like, oh no, we're going to be running out. But now I think are finally seeing the result of the chip shortages, the supplier shortages that happened over the past year and a half.
Yeah, it really caught up with us the last quarter, the fourth quarter of 21, where our inventory that was on hand finally depleted enough where we weren't going to get enough cars to supplement what we had. And, somebody that has not been in the market and not shopping, you probably heard, and there's shortages and constraints with everything that's out there, whether it's manufacturing, food. I mean, you hear it all, but you probably just don't know to what degree. So I understand walking into a place and not even being able to see one of the cars that you want to see, right? I mean, let alone be able to have one.
There's been like waiting lists for even to test drive the cars at certain dealerships, from what I've heard. So it's like, you just never know when you walk in. And being in this business, and we see that stuff, so we kind of make these assumptions that people should automatically know these things. And I'm sure that a lot of people, anyone listening to this probably has walked into dealerships and felt like, hey, like they get frustrated with you because, they feel like you should know that. But obviously we're in the inside looking out. You guys are the outside looking in. And so, it's one of these things we hope to help alleviate so people don't get, there's not this frustration and pain that everyone has when it comes to buying a car. So
if you're listening to this, you probably know that there's an issue, there's a problem out there. The good news is I think, and knock on wood, that probably sounds bad on a podcast. It just probably does all kinds of weird things. We are not radio personalities.
100% amateurs.
I have a voice for TV. I am not good at this, but right.
It's you have a face for radio.
Face for radio, but I have a voice for TV. I'm not meant for this either. But we're at the bottom of that deep valley of probably the worst of the demand. I think it really came towards the end of the year, and then we had that other spike of COVID, and that put a lot of manufacturing. And when we talk about manufacturing, we're not just talking about the plant that builds our cars, because Acuras, a lot of them are coming from, right here close to us here in Marysville, Ohio. We're just south of Cleveland, just outside of Akron, Ohio. But so a lot of the vehicles are coming not too far from us here, but it's not just that plant that's having troubles. It's the suppliers, right? It's everything that's involved with getting that car. And as the chips are a big piece of that, right?
Yeah, and then the labor shortage became the backside of that. Obviously, chips and then supplying and then labor, because a lot of people were taking off time with that second wave of the Omicron variant. And, here we are, and that's kind of where we're at right now. That's like the current state.
So the good news, if you're listening, after you've listened to us, tell a little bit who we are and ramble down the rabbit hole for just a little bit, and you hung on to now, the good news is we are headed our way out. Now, that won't mean there won't be hiccups on the way out of this, right? This is going to be a long term. There's no short-term fix for this. To get the inventory levels back up to where they were, gosh, even a year ago, Matt, you said when we were discussing this yesterday, it's probably going to be this time next year before we even start to think we resemble what we used to.
Oh, for sure. You just don't know. I mean, we don't want to make any promises, and we don't know. But what's happening is we have a lot of deposits, and we'll get into like how to get a car. But like we have deposits on cars that are coming in, and as they're coming in, they're already kind of leaving. So it's not like we have anything to replenish what we had in the past. So
right. So the good news is the last couple shipments we were getting, 1 to 2 cars, every couple of days. And we've actually gotten full, almost truckloads, for the last couple of weeks. So we've seen a pretty nice pickup in the pace of vehicles getting built and coming in. And then we'll talk a little bit about orders and what's going in the system. We've actually seen some orders get pulled in the system that we didn't expect to have happen yet, and be able to order some cars that we didn't think we were going to be able to order quite yet. So it's a positive note. But as a consumer, you're looking at us today and you're going, I still don't know where the cars are. How do I get one of these things? So we're going to kind of walk down that path as just from a dealer standpoint, and talking to people every day.
Right.
What's the best avenue to get yourself on one of these lists if you want a car, and how to contact us as dealers. Right.
And so we field these calls all the time. We have people coming in all the time asking about okay, hey, do you guys have anything available? And again, this all goes back to people who have had deposits for a while. So just to kind of give you like a brief story, every day, I mean, I'm one person of many here at the dealership, but I field 2 to 3 calls a day on, hey, I see this car is available on your website. Is it available? And most of the time the answer is no. And then we kind of say, hey, would you like to put your name on the list? And sometimes people say no. And the next thing it's like, well, okay, you're going to wait even longer then.
And to be fair from their standpoint is, they want to pick up the phone. They want to call the next place, hoping that car, they're going to find something there, which I guess we'd all kind of do that same thing.
And sometimes you might get lucky. You never know. There might be one that lands or whatever. But in general, the best thing to do from our standpoint is to, kind of figure out what you want. And obviously, if you want to stop in and we can put a deposit on something and get it ordered in the next set. And I know, Justin, you do the ordering. And so you see a lot of what we have coming in or what you can even order. I know today we were literally just discussing what that looked like. And they changed some of those things on us. So
we'll dive down that. Hang on, and we'll try to get to the point, but we'll dive down that. But let's I'll kind of walk through that, because I don't think most in general the consumer understands that what shows up on our website is a direct feed only when that vehicle is in our system. In other words, we've received the vehicle, so and it doesn't show which ones are sold or not. Right. Unfortunately. Shame on us as an industry. We have not done very fast shifting of what's going on, and this isn't a problem that dealers have had, right? They just never have had this problem.
That's true.
And so nothing's built that way, right? Built everything on, as far as our online presence is built for on-hand inventory and what's happening right now.
It's been that way for years.
Forever.
Right? And so
nobody's shifting gears fast enough, and shame on us. And if I had control over it, maybe it changed. No. But that's just reality. Right. So what's happening is you're getting on the website, you're seeing a car. Unfortunately, a lot of times that car is already gone. It's not spoken for. And so you don't know unless you pick up the phone and call or reach out to the dealership via email or chat or something. And you really need to do that.
And really, like on top of that, the best thing to do is call. It's call, because our chat systems we can't necessarily get around to those chat systems right away. It might not be till the next day. And if you call, you can talk to a person who is literally on the front lines, like someone who can actually go out and touch the car, see if it's even here. Get a better picture. We have, anyone who's watching, we have our list of cars that are coming in. We've done a good job of making sure who has deposits on cars, things like that. So it's kind of our master list as to what is actually happening. And there's countless times where I'm on a phone call where someone asks if the car's available, or, if I say no, the next thing I do is go to the list, be like, hey, but time out. We might have something that might be coming in, in the near future that might be of the color you want. And so that's kind of where that wait time happens. It's not like there's not like one or two coming in. It's just a matter of, is that the right color you want or package?
Right. And it really, you got to have somebody, especially if you're trying to find a car that's on the ground, you got to get in touch with a dealership, a salesperson. You got to find somebody that's willing to do the legwork and go out and put their hand on things, find out which ones are available. And then if they're not, the worst thing, and I know there's the fear that we're going to call and badger people, but we really just want to connect to people that when we have a car available for the people that are looking for a car, and that's all we're trying to do. And if you can leave your information with them, so when something does come available, you're there. And I can't tell you how many times, man, and we just had some today where people switch colors, they switch gears, they do something else, and a car becomes available. And it, there was probably, X amount of people just within the last couple of weeks that we're looking for that car that we didn't think was available. So
and it gets tricky because it's just like this redundancy of like taking call after call saying, hey, it's not available. What can I do? What's the next step is then, would you like to put your name on the list? So kind of getting back to like what you should do. Obviously, if you haven't already put your name on the list, I get it, like call around to see if anyone has anything available. But really at this point, you really want to try to make sure you get your name in somewhere, to make sure, hey, give them a deposit, let them know what you have, or let them know what you want, and then go from there.
Yeah, and if you have not stopped in at the dealership and driven one, please start there. It's hard to navigate the people that are found what they want and are ready to buy versus the people that haven't seen it yet. And it's not a criticism on it. I understand, but make sure you get it to a dealership. You get a chance to drive the car, experience the car. By at least from our standpoint, we're not in the business of collecting deposits. We don't want deposits. We just want to sell cars, and that's the only thing for it. So we just want to make sure that you've already had a chance to experience the vehicle. If you haven't, let's do that first.
Yeah.
And that's the other piece of that, and I think we probably jumped ahead of ourselves a little bit on that, is make sure the dealership has something there for you to drive that is of interest, right? I know that sounds crazy, but we're really low. Right now, shame on us, but the new 22 RDX, which has had some minor upgrades to it, but is a really cool vehicle. We don't have one here for them.
No, not even yours.
Right?
So the only one we have is our pre-owned one, and I don't even think the ones back in service aren't even aren't 22s.
So we'll find a RDX that's similar to drive, but we don't have a 22 for someone to experience, and that might be a hard thing for somebody to be able to even find. Yeah. We do have an MDX. We were smart enough back when this started to really unravel. Mm-hmm. I guess maybe
unravel big time.
To make sure we had one of those that we hung on to. We typically will have a TLX, and we've had cars in service that we've been able to kind of reserve, set aside to make sure people get a chance to experience the car. Because by no means do we want to put you on a list, make you wait, and have a car come in that's not what you're looking for.
That's right, exactly. And the other thing I'll say to that is that we have this happened to me, but. Consider your fellow consumers out there when it comes to putting a deposit on a car. And I say that because if you haven't really, even experienced the car and you're just trying to put a deposit on the car just to try to hold it for yourself, again, like Justin said, we don't necessarily want to just take deposits. It's not exciting for me to go back and run a credit card number. That's not what we want to do. But consider if you're planning on putting a deposit on the car, consider that car to be yours, because all of a sudden, if you waited and you decided on something else, then there could have been other people who might have wanted that car, and we don't care, but other people might, so that's how I feel about that. Like, consider your fellow consumers when it comes to that.
Yeah. So, and we're not questioning anybody's intent on wanting to buy, just more so making sure that that's what you want before you go down that whole
because then
trail.
Because then you have to it's a whole mess of things that can happen.
So to recap that, make sure you can look on their website, but that information is going to be highly inaccurate, unfortunately, and that's until we resolve that as an industry. This isn't just Acura. I mean, I think it's across the board.
Oh, yeah.
They've done a good job. I think we can now see in transit vehicles, but again, you're talking about vehicles that are already sold, and unfortunately, we mark them sold with Acura, and then they end up in our inventory as showing as a vehicle that's available. We're chasing our own tail, but that's where we're just not used to this industry being like this, right?
Right. I obviously you've been here for 18 years. I've been here for almost 8, so it's new for all of us, and it's not something that I don't think you've ever experienced anything like this before.
Well, to a little degree, we had the tsunami back in 2010, and that's way back in the Acura archives. But what that tsunami did was there were so many components, even for the cars that were built here, that were being supplied from over there. It really just log jammed the whole system. So we actually got to a point where we had no cars for a couple months. But the source was everybody knew what was happening, right? It was just that one area, and I can't even think where the tsunami was. Shame on me, but
sure.
But that was the only time we've ever been through anything like this, and there was a good portion of the at least the industry that received pieces and parts from there that was affected.
Yeah.
But this is definitely the longest and the most drawn out, and like we talked about earlier, it's going to be a while before we see relief on this. In other words, where you can walk into a dealership and have an expectation where you could take a car home or get a car within a short 2-3 week time frame. And
right, and that's kind of changing how the industry, like Ford had come out and they were talking about, well, maybe we're not gonna, and who knows what that's going to look like, but they're not going to just have like vehicles, massive amounts of vehicles on there's some number that was talked about. It was like 4 million cars that were just like sitting around, like not being purchased. They were sitting on lots. And
I have some thoughts, and we'll dive into that maybe on another episode. I think that the industry has so much ground to make up from lost production. I would be, when they can build cars, they're going to build cars. There's a lot of talk about well, we're going to keep it a little bit on the lean side. We want to lean towards orders, which they always do. But we're all realists in saying that if I can build 1,000 widgets, and as a manufacturer, when they give them to us, the dealer, we own them, right? They're our cars, right?
They don't care.
So they don't care. When it really comes down to it, they're going to build as many as they can, and they're going to send them to us. I don't think there's going to be any part on their side to say to throttle back that how much is coming to but it's such a long process, and with cars coming in sold, nothing gets accumulated on the ground, and it's a long time before we get that ground stock. So
and then those incentives change too in terms of like if it's not there.
Right. So right, and I think the manufacturers kind of like that part of it. Clearly, and we'll get into pricing and where cars are selling for. We're going to dive into that on the next one because that's a hot topic. So. And so stay tuned for the next episode. We're going to get into that a little bit about that. And that's a touchy area. We're going to have a lot of people, that won't like us. But, this is a business like anything else. And we're not in denial. We're here to make a profit. You're here to get the best deal you can and get the most car for your money. We work for Acura because we believe that these cars do offer a ton of value for the price, and we love the product, and that's why we're here, and that's why we're talking about this.
Mm-hmm. And about the industry itself. So, I think we're both so customer service driven. Obviously that's where we've had our success here, as individuals and as a store. But yeah, I mean, Acura is such a great brand to be a part of. But yeah, it's kind of crazy and it kind of stinks, and not to digress, but like, the MDX, which they redesigned, it's like these years they couldn't produce them. It's like, man, that car could have been like a home run.
Oh, yeah.
Even more than it already is. And,
And I know that's frustrated a lot of people out there. And if you're listening to this, you might have one on order, or you might be waiting for one, or you might have just got one. And there's nobody that's as frustrated as we are with how long it's taken. It took a long time for the car to get released, even when it was supposed to. As a matter of fact, they skipped the model year. I mean, that's the first time Acura's ever done that. Not many brands do that. They literally skipped the model year because they couldn't get the car out, and COVID and all, just the rabbit hole of problems and to get
even today, it's someone that said, you guys don't have a 2021, and I go, well, they never made one, and so something that people don't think about, and that there's a lot of stuff we could keep going down the rabbit hole with, but. I don't know if you wanted to talk about like leasing at all, like people's lease coming up with inventory.
Yeah, so those are some of the topics that we will touch on. We will try not to wrap them all into one big long show,
right.
But we'll talk about leasing. What should you do with your lease if you have one? What are some of the different options? What can you do with your lease?
Especially right now,
Yeah, we'll talk about that. We'll dive into those different things. We'll talk about pricing because I know that's hot on the subject of a lot of people, and a lot of dealers are all over the map on this. So we'll touch on that. As a kind of a recap, on a positive note, the MDX Type S has landed. If you guys haven't seen that yet, hopefully you have. It's an awesome vehicle. It's here now, finally. Again, Acura promised that to us by the end of the year.
They did, that's right.
And we all sat around watching the ball drop without our MDX Type S. And,
I waited here for it.
And you waited.
I was here at the dealership at midnight. That's how dedicated I was.
So that vehicle finally showed up. A month-ish late from the last minute that they, we expected that car really last fall. It just kept getting pushed, and it's a nice MDX. We really just got it a couple days ago, so we haven't dove in it too much on our own. We will definitely get more information out to that. Matt actually has an awesome video coming out that you'll catch here on YouTube. Comparing some of the different packages on it.
Yeah, because we have the Ace. As of this video, we have an A-Spec MDX Type S, the regular one, or tech package, however you want to put that, and then the MDX Type S Advanced. So we have those three here. That's what the video is on.
3 of them here on hand right now, which we know is going to be, this is a short blip. We have the demo unit. By the way, your dealers, local dealers, have a demo unit because the chances are everybody signed up for that. That is one unit that they have to keep for you to be able to test drive and see what it's all about. They cannot sell that unit to you. So do not beg and plead. Do not throw money at them. They can't sell you that unit. And if they choose to sell you that unit, they do lose future allocation, which will cost them more than just that sale, that unit. So it is what it is, but this allows people to see that car, experience it, see what it's all about.
It's smart. They did that with the TLX as well.
Yeah, they did it with the TLX. And looking back, it for us, it seemed like forever before we could sell it. Now then after we sold it, look back, I said, gosh, I wish I would have kept it because now we haven't had one since to show anybody. I mean,
actually, I don't even remember. When was the last time we even had one?
We had one Tiger Eye Pearl that came in and it was gone within a day, and that's what happens. And so now everybody that's out there that wants to look at one hasn't been able to have a chance to experience it. So shame on us. Live and learn. We'll do better with this MDX as time goes on. So that's a positive note. That vehicle has showed up. Like I mentioned, we've gotten full trucks of vehicles coming in, and again, most of those sold, but we do have a couple things available now, which is exciting. I think this is the most vehicles on hand that we've had for a while. A combination of sold, but some things that are available.
But it's still good to see the cars.
Yeah, it's amazing. We had all this space, and now we're starting to fill it up with things, and it's exciting to have something to talk about when you guys call and when you reach out to us. So one thing I did want to touch on this show, we're looking for you guys to provide some feedback on what you want to know about Acura, what you want to know about. The brand itself, about the product, the industry, how talk to us about that. Let us know. Comments, emails. We'll try to put the contact information in here. Again, this show isn't to sell you a car. Matt is an awesome salesperson, but if you're listening from Seattle, Washington, thank you very much. Appreciate that, but you don't have to reach out to Matt to get a car. We
do fine here, but
we love the recognition for that, but that's not why we're doing it. We just really want to get the information out. So let us know what kind of information is valuable to you. We'll provide you with updates and information as we have it. We did just go through Monday and Tuesday is what was Acura's order cycle. And I was just going to give you a little recap. So if you're listening to this and you have a vehicle on order, what we are allowed to order. And so what happens is we're given a certain allocation of vehicles. And within that allocation, there's usually certain limitations they put on what we can get.
It's a great way to put it. Because it's very different than like a lot of other manufacturers.
Oh,
and
absolutely, yeah.
Depending on where you've bought cars before, I think there's still that, well, they don't know. People, I barely know. Justin does all the ordering, so I barely know what that looks like. So it is interesting. People are like, well, you can't just order that car. Like, here's what I want. Order it. Like,
right. So Acura and even Honda, to an extent, they plan out pretty far on what kind of allocation as far as vehicles they're going to build, and they have a really long order planning process. So they already have an idea, 2-3 months out what they're going to produce. Now we're going to try to order a vehicle, fill your order, if you order a car, with one of those vehicles that are coming is the ideal situation. But to give you an idea, this was for March, April build. We do have RDXs in the system. There was a decent amount of RDXs. I'm not going to go with the exact numbers because it's going to be different at every dealership across the country. We're probably a medium to large Acura dealership across the span. So we're a good, mid sample size. Some of you, if we're talking in numbers, you could probably double it for the bit larger markets when you get into your Chicago, your Texas, your
Columbus,
Columbus,
New York ones,
New York markets. Obviously this all goes up in volume, but keep in mind there's also a greater population looking for those, so it's somewhat relative no matter how you speak of it.
That's true.
So there were RDX orders pretty much open across the board. The only thing I'll caution you is they did limit the number of colors that were available on the base model RDX. There are only 3 colors available on this order. So again, we had some sold orders that weren't able to be filled just because of availability. And I don't know if that's a supplier issue. We don't know where that's coming from. But they're trying to build what they can build. So there were only 3 colors available on the base RDX that were available. Everything else was open. They did eliminate the following colors for this order cycle, and I think this is moving forward through the 22 model year. Is there will be no more black parchment, the black pearl with the parchment interior, and no more silver with the gray stone on RDX. MDX, everything's was pretty open. Very limited base or entry level model with the MDX. They're focusing more so on the tech, A-spec, and advanced trims, and very limited in 2-wheel drive. So I apologize for the rest of the country that is what you like to buy. The Acura all-wheel drive system is unbelievable. It's worth the $2,000.
That's
Don't sell yourself short. That's a whole nother video. And I know sometimes you don't need it, so you don't care. But
it's not. Yeah.
But it's worth the money, and there's very limited availability as far as colors. I won't rattle through all that. Just know that if you've got one of those on order and you have had a hard time getting it, consider going to all-wheel drive. You might be able to find your vehicle a little faster, or your dealer might be able to help you out with that a little bit more. As far as regular MDX, Tech, and Advanced, these following colors were not available, and they have not been available, so we might fear that these might go away for the 22 model year at least, and that is the red with parchment, the violet pearl with ebony, which is a new color, but I'm afraid it was such a niche color, I don't know how that's going to go over. Yeah. Black with parchment again, and black with espresso. So it looks like that parchment interior. I don't know how those cows come any different than the other ones, but it sounds like they're having some issues with that.
So the parchment cows are gone.
Yeah, so just be aware of that. Now I was able to order some parchment in white in a couple other in a couple other trim packages, and we did get, I think, what will be, and again, don't take this as the gospel. Because I don't know, it's speculation. Yeah, right. It might be our last allocation of ILX, because as you may or may not be aware, the Integra is not too far away. We'll talk about that again in future episodes.
I actually thought this past order you were going to be able to order.
I almost did too, right? Okay. Because we're talking about March, April production. Again, these could be mid to end of March, and then we could be talking about a changeover as they transition to the Integra. Okay. So, So, and they're very limited availability. There was no base trims available in an ILX, and no premium trims, just A-spec premium models. So if you had an ILX on your radar, it's going to be an ILX A-spec premium because that's the only thing that's available.
Oh, A-spec, not just premium, but A-spec premium? Oh.
So that's the only vehicle that we were able to.
Oh, that's fine.
So
that's a good car.
And that's probably the meat of what the premium and the premium A-spec are what really, people are really after. On
Question for you that I didn't ask you earlier. 23 MDXs?
So no talk on that. Everything's 22. We're 22 across the board. That's a great question, Matt, because the 22 came out early. So
I know,
they skipped 21. so we there, at some point we expect a earlier switch over to a 23.
Right.
So that brings us to another piece, and maybe we'll hang on to that for next. Make a note of that. We'll talk about that next week because. If you have an MDX on order and we start to push whether that vehicle is going to get here in time, it could change to a 23, Matt.
And that'll change like the incentive.
And they'll change the incentive and the price. So we'll talk about that a little bit more on the next episode. I just want to touch on the incentives real quick. I won't dive through all of them because I know we're taking a lot of your time, but there's so much information and so much stuff that we want to share. Mm-hmm. But there are some incentives on some different cars. 21 RDXs probably isn't one of those on the ground anywhere. If you have a dealer that has one of those and you haven't taken advantage of that, you should. I don't think there are many. I know in our district or zone, which we're kind of the Midwest, and we run all the way almost down to Texas. There was next to nothing available for all the dealers. So 22 RDX does have a 2.9% special up to 60 months. That is their finance rate. The big news is on TLX and MDX. I don't know if everybody realizes that MDX, they had a price increase. Again, make a note of that. We'll talk about that.
Wait, again?
Because
what do you mean a second time?
They had a price increase you probably didn't know, but if you had one on order prior to the beginning of this year, the price has changed on that vehicle. Not dramatically, but we can go through and touch on that, on how much that's changed. But there is still a featured lease, and Acura's done a really good job, I think, on this vehicle, given the demand of zero, availability, to keep somewhat of a lease special. It actually has the lowest, money factor special across any of our cars.
Right, which is wild.
And they've hung on to Acura loyalty, and what that means is they have an incentive that if you have a 2021 or newer,
2012.
Well, it was 21 for this because they skipped that model year, but it usually goes back 10 years.
Oh, I gotcha. No,
usually goes back 10 years. That's what they consider you a loyal person to the brand. Mm-hmm. So they have $1,000 loyalty rebate that you can use any way you want. You don't have to trade that vehicle. It just needs to be in your household.
Yep.
Just literally at the same address. Could be your cat's vehicle. It doesn't matter.
My cats don't have any cars, but
Fido doesn't have a car. Well, you should get him an Acura. That loyalty might pay off. And then they still have the Conquest, which is a lot of different luxury brands, which we'll again dive a little bit more into maybe in another episode.
Yeah.
But there's a $750 Conquest still on that vehicle, and that's they include Honda sister brand on that, as well as a lot of different luxury brands. So that, as well as they still are offering a 2.9% APR on the MDX. But the one I wanted to touch on real quick is 21 TLX. There still might be a handful of those out there. I think we have one left.
Oh, we have one left. That's right, yeah.
And not only is there still a decent lease special on that car, but there is a $2,500 loyalty or Conquest rebate on that car still. It is probably the only car on the planet that has any type of rebate like that.
I actually think it was on in the US. There was one newspaper that had it, and they've had that since last spring.
Right.
Remember, we kept saying they're going to drop it. They're going to drop it. They're going to drop it, and they never did.
They did a really good job keeping it because they're just trying to clear those 21 inventory out, which they've done a great job. You can take advantage of that, as well as 0.9% financing for up to 60 months. Again, probably, I think I did see some manufacturer advertising 0%. I'm all for incentives, but typically incentives are to help move vehicles that are there. And that's, when it comes down to the meat and potatoes of why manufacturers have incentives, it's to move cars that are sitting on the ground. And when there are no cars, usually you don't see those type of
Well, I
incentives.
do wonder, and not to go down this rabbit hole because we can, is which manufacturers are doing that on specific cars, like Honda LXs. I know they did that for a while. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Usually the slower moving are things that might not be going as fast as others, or what's going to get some of those incentives. But they have a nice incentive on the 2022 TLX. They have a fairly decent lease on that vehicle, as well as they're offering $1,000 loyalty cash for 750 Conquest, and we can dive into that. It does exclude the Type S models. Sorry, guys. Same way with the lease special
and PMCs.
and PMCs. Yes,
think,
good to point that out on.
Almost forgot about the PMC.
So
Almost forgot.
about them.
Almost like we never had it.
Right.
Or never had a chance to have it.
Never have a chance. All right, so hopefully that provided a lot of information where we're at as looking down the tunnel. What we want to do is just kind of keep adding to this, keep giving you updates, keep giving you. We'll dial in our subjects a little bit. Today we wanted to introduce ourselves, get a little bit you familiar with what we were trying to accomplish as just a couple of guys that sell Acuras
At an Acura store.
at an Acura store.
And we are humans too, so
Yeah.
People walk in. We're people too. So.
Right. Yeah, don't yell at us. Again, the less you yell, the more we'll give you information.
And more money. No.
and a better deal. And a better deal. We'll talk about a better deal. That's another subject for
I don't
another
wanna talk
day.
about that subject.
It's one of Matt's favorites.
right.
What's a good deal?
That's right.
Right.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
Anybody
it.
stuck
If
around
you're
for the
watching us
entire
on
thing?
YouTube, thank you very much.
Yep.
And we'll see you again for the next one. Make sure you look for that video Matt's got coming out on the MDX. That's a surefire one
In the
that has a
middle
lot of
of
information.
in the middle of editing it as we speak. I was just going to do that during the podcast, but
So, right, you should have that out hopefully soon, and we'll get more information out video-wise on those vehicles. Look for us next week. Thanks again, and we'll talk to you soon.